Hey guys, and welcome back to Quirk Concepts. We are here with our sixth installment. Thank you everyone so much for giving us support on the last video. We're here. Well, I'm here with Mark.
We are here.
If I'm like gonna like change my shading, so it's like we are here for this video to talk about some of the comments / ideas that have been submitted in the previous video. So as always guys, if you guys haven't already, please consider giving this video a like, also subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell for the next time this video, a video like this comes out. There was quite a bit of a hiatus between like this one and 5, so definitely be sure just to keep on lookout for those ones. So without further ado, I think we will just go ahead and get started with this one. We're starting off really strong, and then really strong as in like extremely dense.
Good God, I remember that when you showed me the list. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, when I was starting the collection of all these comments, this was the first one, and I was like, good lord. Good lord, dude.
He gave you the terms and conditions.
I think what happened here was that for this comment, I'm gonna go ahead and just sprawl it across the screen right now. I think
Just
the
to
person
really let you
capped
know
out on all character limits. So I took it upon myself, and you know, editor Justin, you can also go ahead and try to condense this as much as you can, or show like my notes of it. What Norma had said, who had now changed their username to, when I last checked it, goat damn it, has this core concept idea. I tried to like break it down a little bit, but you guys can feel free to read the bulk that's like currently on display right now. So it's actually a twofer one. Actually, they had one that was squeezed in between. One of those quirks was spore / explosive spores, and that's all that was written. And the next one is the one that's like completely like detailed. You have like the username,
very detailed.
you have the quirk, and you have all the abilities that are listed out. There's also drawbacks to this one. So from the top, the hero's name is Second Wind, and the quirk is Air Twist. The username input here is Kaze.
So much.
In parentheses, I didn't mean for this quirk to be so strong. Kaze, in this case, has total manipulation of air and related gases, boosting his mobility or taking on the form of air itself. User then proceeds to list out all the different like abilities.
Holy shit.
And I believe I highlighted the ones that are kind of a bit of a stretch.
Well, when he says combining air and gases, that leads God knows how many different combinations.
I mean, yeah,
that leads to.
And you know, to be fair,
chemical gases. You got to think about natural forming gases. You got to think about gases that you get when you mix chemicals.
I guess that's also fair too. I think one thing to keep in mind of, and this is kind of like roughly reaching like Mirio's like territory, is that you have like this quirk, and you just have like a very limited knowledge of like what it does. But over time, you learn more about that quirk, and you start to apply into different things. So I can commend the fact that like a lot of this stuff was starting to like reach out into other areas that otherwise I would not even conceive of. But I can see it. I can totally see it. But essentially, it's air manipulation in its like basic sense, and possibly even further out.
Basically, anything that is in a gaseous form.
The only things that kind of like made me a little bit iffy was like ice manipulation, like as an extension, and glass manipulation.
The only thing, because there's a thing, if it's a manipulation of gases, I'm going to assume this leads only into gaseous forms. So when you're talking about ice, that was a liquid at first that had then turned into a solid. If it was to evaporate, it would be water vapor that you could manipulate, but manipulating ice in and of itself, I don't believe is possible unless they could explain.
Yeah.
Science.
Yeah. You know what? That's really interesting because now we're kind of treading over to Avatar territory. That time when excuse me, when Katara was learning more about like waterbending, further extensions of it, of how you can like get as much water resources as humanly possible. I believe there was a certain point where she either got out of thin air, or it was just
there's
by
water
plants.
vapor in the air constantly.
Yeah, so I was like, that's kind of crazy.
It's actually theoretically it absolutely makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And then the quote unquote blood bending. aspect
Which,
of it.
again, theoretically, it does make sense.
It does make sense. So it's like, yeah. Let's see what else. I think this is a funny thing. They added the drawbacks here at the very end, I believe. That if the wind currents are too strong, they can actually blow the user away. So you gotta equip those those heavy iron boots from Legend of Zelda, right? Just so you can you'd be all right.
Yep, basically, you got to keep yourself grounded, otherwise you're gonna blow yourself away.
Yeah. But otherwise, if we're kind of like bridging over to Avatar, I think it really is just airbending. Really is just airbending. Which, I mean, I recently like saw like a fair bit of like Korra, and it's fun to just kind of see like all that like happening and how like the elements kind of like bridge together during certain times, like water vapor, for example. Or, you know, metal bending is kind of like technically like a further extension or like really refining that.
Korra went into all the sub-archetypes of bending.
Yeah. I think except for magma, which is like or lava bending.
That would probably be more considered Earth.
Yeah. I feel like that's a little bit of a hybrid with that in like fire, but there's no such thing as like a hybrid like that. It's just an extension.
I feel like it would be earth bending because magma itself isn't fire as much as it is just really hot.
Yeah. So I mean, that I could totally see it. Let me see. It looks like we'll just go ahead and jump on to the next one. This is from Richard, right? He has two of them. As we were saying earlier, or previous iterations, if a user has multiple like quirk ideas, then we'll just pick like one of our favorites, or we'll like just divide and conquer like on two of them. I definitely went with Richard's idea of diamond dust here.
Yeah, I thought diamond dust was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's the ability to create or to manipulate the power of these constructs called like diamond dust, and they are pretty much, and he actually references certain scientific railgun for this example, which I totally got. But for anyone else, it's pretty much just taking like the particles and just reforming them to however you see fit. So in this case, they use the example of like maybe a Titan, for example, to be like an offensive thing or use for the quirk, or to create a cage in that instance. What else did I see here as well? Richard, shouts to Richard, he added some instances of like the origin story of like the character who would have this ability and a possible rival with like maybe like an opposite like side of that quirk. I found this one to be very interesting because of the dependency on diamond dust as the material. You have the ability to like manipulate it, but you actually have to create it, and the way you create it for this person is by sacrificing a bit of your life force, a bit of mental energy, even taking like heat away from your body in order to do it. So it was interesting because you can either prep the diamond dust ahead of time, or you can do it on the spot. But regardless of it, you do kind of have to sacrifice a little bit. But I think for the sake of the user, I think it would just be a temporary loss, and not in like a this is all compounded to the rest of your life. So the more you use it, the less likely you live long. Like you use it like when you were 12, that was 1 year off your life. I was like, bruh.
The more you use it, the more you're just destroying yourself slowly.
Yeah, which is kind of sad, and I won't completely rule it out either, because you know, I think something we should consider is that some quirks just aren't really meant for like that human body. I mean, we have other characters who have like quirks given to them when they were quirkless, and so they're not really compatible. But I think there's also people such as Dobby who don't have that type of quirk that is really good for them in the long run, because it's just so like self-inflicting, like as to the after effects. So if this is one of those, I guess that is it, and it's just unfortunate that like a user with diamond dust has to deal with those types of consequences, despite how useful they would be. So the next one we have here is MB. MB's a regular here, and he's dropped, I believe, 2 concepts, right?
He's a regular that's always giving very detailed, very well done works.
Mm-hmm. It's very difficult to see if you can like try to concise. I think you can, but you would when you even though I do kind of like the aspect of just kind of extrapolating like just based on imagination on what a quirk can do. The details do kind of like give you a lot to kind of really look into as far as like giving you the specifics on how the creator has in mind of how they work. My favorite thing that MB had put down was actually Shroud. I like both of them. Like, I like both of them a lot. So shout out to Tether, but Shroud was like my favorite because it was heavily stealth orientated, but it wasn't just like the Harry Potter invisibility cloak, which I initially thought this was. Having said that though, I thought like the invisibility cloak idea was still really cool. But essentially Shroud is it's a mist that the user emits, whether to themselves or in a widespread area. The user kind of has a sense of like themselves and the people around them, but the people who are in the mist can't identify the user in that space. It is only visual, like impeding only. So as a result, anything else like winds or even sound can alert people as to where you are at or counter it. So I like that was like a pretty simple but effective drawback to it. It's not like super powerful, but like if no one expects it, no one's expecting it. So
Exactly.
I really like that one.
Yeah, Shroud definitely has a lot of interesting capabilities. I do think that he did list a lot of things, like a lot of moves like Shroud Counter, Fake Out, Shroud Cannon, Fog of War, Optical Delusion. A lot of these would be really good. A lot of these would be really good for espionage or just straight up like special Black Ops kind of hero missions.
I think, and I do like how they kind of stretch a little bit on Shroud Cannon, because I feel like it is stealth only that has like more of like visual like impairment for like other people, but to kind of manipulate in that type of way, it is like a thick kind of like mist and gas. So theoretically that could work.
Naturally, yeah. Yeah, when you release gas, when you release pressurized gas, it does have force behind it, so that is absolutely a possibility he could use it defensively.
Yeah. So I'm totally down with that. But shouts to Tether as well. You guys can also will be able to read that as well, as I kind of like had shown that. Let's move on to the next one. We got Digital Anime, another one who's sent us ideas before. They have 11 concepts, so it was kind of difficult to like narrow it down. But I think I found one that was my favorite. It was Brain Matter. Did you have a favorite that wasn't Brain Matter, Mark?
I think the one that I liked the most was probably Pistol.
Oh yeah, you know what? Like I saw Pistol and I really looked at it and imagined like that's totally a thing. Like even though we've seen a number of like gun like quirks, that doesn't mean like those are the only ones. I could totally see this one just like in the show or in the series.
Of course, I do have a couple of critiques, but I will save that for a little bit.
My favorite was Brain Matter. It works almost exactly like how Fat Gum's quirk works, in the sense that like he compounds a lot of fat that he's able to use as kind of like a shield for himself that absorbs a lot of force, and he could charge up all that force into and release it at like all at once, essentially. With Brain Matter, it's kind of the same idea where a lot of the fat that you have can be burnt out into like into the brain to essentially increasing like your intelligent like base level on things. So this isn't like an offensive quirk in any sense, but this is someone that you can kind of see in the background of things, one who like really plans things out, but they just so happen to eat a lot in order to like compensate for that. So I really liked it for that.
Yep, it definitely has its advantages. Although I do think that the weakness could have been better, because I do think the weakness, just other than it not being a combat quirk.
You're right. That is
another
really
drug
quite a
that
weakness.
could be you'll run out of body fat in general.
Could that be a given? Like, it's kind of dangerous if you don't have a good amount of fat on you.
Also, because we know that the fat dissipates into nothing after 5 to 30 minutes, or the fat conversion is 5 to 30 minutes, and anytime further than that, the fat will dissipate into nothing. So, does that mean the brain matter itself will disappear after that, or does the brain matter stay? That is the question I'm wondering right now. If the brain matter itself
that's fair point.
will also dissipate, or if it stays.
Okay.
Otherwise, you gonna have a big old head.
It's like the episode of Jimmy Neutron. Sheen, stop.
It's exactly what I thought of when I read it, honestly. And of course, we have pistol, which is basically a pistol allows the user to transform their hands into pistols. Pew pew. The pistols shoot bones instead of actual bullets, so bullets made out of bones. These bone bullets are not actually from the skeleton, as they are bullet-shaped bones that formed in the barrels. The bone bullets are also formed out of calcium, so overusing this quirk can make the user calcium deficient. I was like, okay.
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
I was like, all right. And then weaknesses. If the user is already calcium deficient, then the quirk is rather weak or useless. That's
Little
fair.
pea shooters.
And then it says advantage. The user doesn't run out of bullets. This is my one critique I had for you, my guy. The user doesn't run out of bullets. What if they run out of calcium? Because like we said before, it could lead to you being calcium deficient, which means you have little to no calcium in your system.
This is true.
So overusing it sounds like it's a good way to run out of bullets.
I would say that the advantage is that you have a Glock on hand.
I've got my Glock, my support item.
You have a Glock by hand.
But otherwise, I did like the idea for a pistol using calcium for bullets. I do think that was a very creative and good idea on you.
Yeah, I actually do like that. We are jumping over to EC Burner's account. It's a very interesting username, but we got a few ideas like in the single comment. So I picked out one here. I actually kind of like Transcendence out of like all of them, just because like it's not. I think I'm starting to gravitate towards a lot more non-offensive quirks in the long run of things, if it's ever available and it's interesting. So Transcendence here is that when your emotions are completely neutral, you actually become completely invulnerable. Do not feel pain, but as well as have the ability to completely stop any attacks around them. However, he's unable to hurt you during this like duration. So it's essentially
it's the quirk version of no fucks to give.
Yeah, essentially. So it's one of those things where like if needed in operation or in the right like place and time, like all you gotta do is just shut down those like emotions, and then I mean it really is just like you have to like trust the quirk at this point. Otherwise, like you can be overcome with fear at any time. But if you masters that type of thing, you essentially are invulnerable in that case, and that can help out any other person who is just in that certain circumstance. You can't do anything essentially, but at the very least you don't get hurt, no one else gets hurt, you're the target, you got the aggro on you. So I can imagine this person like just being like an average dude who can't really use that quirk, or you know could take that route, utilize
Just
that
a bullet
quirk.
shield.
Yeah, so I mean like
But I did both enjoy Plot Hole and Rune Master.
yeah, shoutouts actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plot Hole's just funny, but Rune
Yeah,
Master's
Plot Hole
actually
I
kind
just
of
like
interesting.
for comedies. Yeah,
Mhm.
Rune Master I think would be my choice in terms of interesting, because basically using your own words to give yourself certain powers for 10 seconds. I'm like, okay, I like that. Leaves a whole lot of room for different things you can do. It probably has a limit to it. We just gotta figure out what that limit would be.
Mhm.
And Plot Hole, I like Plot Hole purely because of comedy.
Yeah, it's one of those comedy things where like the character knows, but no one else believes them. So it's like funny ensues.
Funny ensues. I guess I like the fourth wall break.
Mm-hmm. It's like, could you imagine this person in the My Hero like manga right now? They're like, oh, they see Eri, they're like, uh-oh. It's that's not good. Ooh, but okay. So this one right here, it's a pretty big one. This is kind of like someone just went off, like they had a whole like couple rounds and they unloaded all of them. This is from Angel, 23 total concepts. So we looked at each one, and I picked a favorite on my end. Did you pick a favorite?
Let me just refresh myself with it real quick.
Hmm.
But you may explain yours while I refresh myself real quick.
So out of all these ones, and again I'll have these like spread out like over the video. My favorite is actually Taste Test. The user of Taste Test, with it you will have you have to get up close. Okay, where you can pick them and you can track their every moves. So essentially, I'm thinking taste tests in the literal sense, or I guess you can also pick at them. Where like once you do that, you're able to track that 1% down. The only downside of like this idea is that it doesn't really kind of elaborate on like any limitations to it, any drawbacks. But I do like the idea that we have certain quirks that are kind of like that in the series, but taste tests could be one of those things where like you can track them down, kind of like in a sense that if you have like really good scent on them, for example. But this is just like taste tests with like kind of the same like application. So I found that to be the most interesting one for sure. Just needs a little bit more elaboration on like drawbacks and whatnot.
Yep, and I might do a little bit of a bias because I also I think it was in the first Quirk Concepts video, I also made a quirk called Hercules, and I did enjoy. I like the idea of a quirk similar. Like this definitely does. It's definitely similar to mine, which his or hers, I'm not quite sure. The female picture is a woman, I think, but this could just, I don't know who they are, but it says Quirk Hercules, category long range, description. With the Quirk Hercules, this is where the user can buff up and stomp the ground that sends a shockwave and a giant wave across the ground. Granted, I'm assuming this means this is similar to what I would have said, which is basically buff up. It's an increase of strength and durability, more than likely, apparently, enough to where someone could stomp the ground. It would send out a force big enough to create a shockwave and send this giant rippling mass across the ground. Like this sounds like it would be very strong, very cool to see. The only thing we need is some drawbacks, but I do like where you were going with this one.
I feel like that the description was kind of like a very specific example. Like it makes me want to like extrapolate a little bit more about that. Like it's obviously a buff for the person, but are they only able to do shockwaves to the ground, or do they have a duration of how long they can buff up to do any other like action, right? Like could they punch the nearest person like in front of them, or could they also maybe do the same thing with a clap in their hands, like create like a shockwave like through the air, something like that? I was just really curious about that.
Oh yeah, understandable.
By the way, how was what was your Hercules quirk? How's that varying from this one?
Yes, my version of Hercules in the first Quirk Concepts video was more along the lines of you gain increased durability and strength for about I would say you get it. I think I put it somewhere in the realm of. I did put it on a time limit. It's been a while. I'm trying to remember what it was, but I do remember I based the limit off of the 12 labors of Hercules.
Oh, okay. No, actually, that's actually pretty cool.
And I think, I believe I said that if you exceed the time limit, you will absolutely feel incredible pain. You will feel the most excruciating pain on like several different parts of your body.
Yikes.
Like it'll take a big physical toll, but it's a big risk reward kind of thing. I'll have to go back and look at my exact wording, but I know it had something to do with all that.
We're looking at Zay's concepts. He actually submitted 5 of them. Zay's actually a favorite.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, Zay's actually a favorite of mine as far as the concepts that he's submitted over the previous like Quirk Concepts. I found one that was my favorite, mainly, and it was actually interesting because I just kind of like gravitated towards this because of like a certain ability that was like, an ability that was like placed into it. But first, Mark, did you have one that's different from mine?
Because for me, it was between impenetrable and dynamite hands.
I do like dynamite hands.
But just for the absolute balance, I'll give it to Dynamite Hands, but I do want to give the honorable mention to Impenetrable. But Dynamite Hands, the user is able to produce dynamite from their fingertips. It says here you can make explosives, smokescreen, flashbangs. Drawback: spamming too much dynamite can cause you to lose all function in your hands. It takes about 30 minutes to fully recover your quirk. I imagine you might be able to cut that time down a little bit if you practice it some more. And then with just the honorable mention, Impenetrable, I did like what this was in terms of the user can gain invulnerability and enhance strength by consuming 500,000 calories daily. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah, no, I think that person would not have that type of like lifestyle. They would only have to be able to do it like once.
You'd have to eat heavy calorie meals. Like, holy shit.
I can't imagine. That has to be like you need to do some selective breeding for that.
I mean, with a quirk like that, I imagine their body is probably adapted to a way to eat that amount of calories.
Yeah, that's fair too. Yeah, this is one of those things that honestly, now that I'm like thinking about it and rereading my like the favorite that I picked, that a lot of these quirks have to like come from like the parents, of course, and that usually will come with like different variants in the body as well. Some are noticeable, some not so much noticeable. My favorite actually was Psycho Saber. Actually,
I knew you were gonna say that. I was like, I know. It's gonna be. I feel like it's. I was like, he loves Scarlet Nexus. Scarlet Nexus is great, but I knew that was gonna have an influence on it.
Right. I'm gonna be 100% honest. Scarlet Nexus was not even like on my mind when I like chose this one. I picked this for a very.
About?
I choked this. Choked this. I chose this for a very specific reason. And I'll just go ahead and like read it out. So this is Psycho Saber. It's an emitter. The user is able to manifest turquoise green energy in the form of katanas, like from their mind. The abilities are sword constructs, the ability to create a barrier around the sword, launch shockwaves with the sword, homing sword attacks, also psycho swaps, which allows you to switch places with the swords. My thing about this one was the barrier thing. I was like, how does that work exactly? If all you can do is create these swords, how do you create a barrier out of one of them? So I was like, I think I was overthinking about this as far as like, if I had decided this.
The psychic part of the ability is what I'm imagining. It's a telekinetic barrier.
Yeah, but like then that makes me question like, so why does it have to be katana specifically?
He really liked katanas.
I mean, maybe, but like, does that mean that they could have made any other type of bladed weapon, or even not even bladed, maybe like a bludgeoning weapon, or just the pure like the energy itself? So that's what I was going for, not necessarily Scarlet Nexus. Although now I can't stop that connection from like being shown in front of me. But no, I saw this and I was just really questioning about like, does it have to be this? I mean. But now I think about like, if it's something from that was inherited, right? Then it was a mix of like someone who could make like swords or has specific bladed like properties like in a quirk, and there's just also a psycho like quirk as well. And
yeah, it's some kind of like a telekinetic ability.
Yeah, and if those were married together, then I can understand like this just being like that's the byproduct. Like it could only be like these energy swords that come out of it. So. Now that like I've thought about that, it makes sense a little bit more so. And I guess it also stands the reason that you could also kind of stretch yourself a little beyond just the formation of a sword, in the form of maybe a barrier, or if anything, like to get around it, you could just do like all the cool anime stuff, such as like twirling many swords to become like a barrier. You know, I think you can make that work too. Switching place, a la the Renegon effect. That's interesting. I'm certainly keeping a tab on that. I think there was also a drawback to it as well. It's a 5-hour migraine. Jesus Christ.
That's gonna be pain.
Excessive nose bling as well. All right, so we are the
we're having an aneurysm.
We are the harem protagonists here too.
No, we are having an aneurysm. That's what that is.
Yikes. That was like a mid-discovery and elaboration on my part on this one. Still like it though. I like this person's username. It's Foolianoo. Foolianoo. The quirk is called Dancing Dragon. Oh god. I read it out loud and I immediately thought of Avatar. It's not a dance. It's an ancient cultural ritual. Oh yeah, what's it called? The Dancing Dragon. The user gains 20 times his or her normal strength when performing a dance. There's 7 dances that are known. Each one has like their own element or skill. So for example, dance 1 has like a basic strength enhancement that's just multiplies the strength. But let's say dance 4 is like a unique ability for the user to coat themselves in like a certain elements, such as like fire, lightning, and they deal elemental damage along with like physical enhancement. The stronger the enhancement, the less the elemental enhancement, the less strength you have actually. And the weakness is after a dance, the user suffers great muscle pains, and the more they dance, the worse it like ends off with them. If a user were to do all 7 dances at once, If you give them like 100 times that strength with 100% control like over a single element, but once all of them have been used, all the muscles of these simultaneously are shredded like paper.
This reminded me. This quirk hero did remind me a bit of, yes, like they said, there's Demon Slayer, but it also reminds me of, say, if anyone here has ever played Smite, the god Shiva. His ultimate is a dance, because Shiva is also the god of dance, not only the god of destruction and life itself. But the dance in his ultimate ability can either completely damage, heal, and damage, or just heal. And so that's why I say when dance is power, I'm like, yeah, that's instantly what I think of.
I wouldn't go excessive on this one. But as we were talking about, yeah, it's really cool because Demon Slayer, for example, has all these different styles, and Tanjiro actually has like one that's kind of inherited as far as like a dance. So I can see like that perspective. And me playing Octopath Traveler, knowing that Primrose and the dancing class in general has this type of ability where like there's no elemental buffs per se, but these are specific buffs to each individual stat. So it's up to you to decide which stance you want to go for that helps boost the party or a single person. So that's what I really liked about this one. It was a really good one. Good idea.
Like paper though. Oh.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, don't do that. It's exactly like that Tanjiro dance. Like it does a great deal to you. So don't do it. Well, we have this one. This is a Sora Fallen. I wonder about that one. Scatter memory is like a far off dream. This one's Malice. The explanation for this one is
this is an edgy ass quirk right here.
Yes. Essentially, with Malice, it pretty much takes all these different emotions that you have and like gives them like specific physical like properties to them each. In this case, Sora decided to go with the idea that like something like anger creates like these solidified like block pieces, black substance that they can control, whereas like sadness is kind of like a much more of like a liquid. Happiness is like air, and each of them having like their own like applications here and there. So it's about like harnessing emotions, which isn't like the easiest thing in the world, but you know, if you're really good at it, then you're really good at it, which I do like that part of it. Something that is just like as natural as emotions, and especially since emotions kind of trigger a lot of quirk like evolutions in the series. I liked it for that as well. Mark, did you have anything else you want?
That pretty much expresses my thoughts on it too, I believe.
Was there a drawback from that one?
The drawback was mostly you just have to focus.
Ah, got you.
Which I was like, I guess.
Yeah. Obviously, yeah, you have to focus on one emotion. The drawback is that it's just really difficult to like master if you're one who is like emotional or maybe even doesn't express a lot, just generally speaking. We have Xander here. I do recognize Xander. It has two concepts, and I picked one. It was called Kill Switch.
I think that Kill Switch is definitely very cool because it reminds me of Aizawa's quirk in a sense. But I do think that my only critique of it was that it does need a bit more of a limitation. But it says this quirk can work as long as the user is conscious and the user can't choose specific people or things to keep on. Everything just goes off. So I guess they do have to be selective, but at the same time, it needs more of a limitation of what are the drawbacks to using it other than pretty much this is going to just shut everything down.
I read that as if it was kind of like a randomized like event where if you want to use that quirk, you do deactivate someone's quirk. You just don't know who exactly it would be. So it's just a wild card. You don't know what's gonna happen if you throw this person like into like a whole like procedure on things. So I kind of liked it for just being like it's a really cool idea. It just can't really be truly like perfected and can really be.
If you send that person alone into some giant villain headquarters, I mean, really, they're doing their job just fine.
I guess so, but I guess that assumes the fact that they can do it to multiple people. Because I guess, yeah, if they take any power away, then sure. I would say then maybe like development, they can like do multiple people at once. Yeah, I guess in this case, I can't even think of a drawback for it then. You know, aside from just the inconvenience of it.
Basically.
All I need is that quirk and a gun.
That quirk and a gun.
And I think the last one that we actually have here is Let's Talk. Just a reminder, everyone, this is all from like Quirk Concepts 5. So if you want you guys read, please be sure to check out like the most recent like video. Could be this one, could be like another one like later on in the future. But to wrap it up, we have Let's Talk. They got 2 concepts as well. This one doesn't even have like a name actually. But the quirk is that you can create 3 small pizza-sized discs. I like how those described. They're strong as steel, and the user can freely control them at will. But the drawback is that the power won't work if the user can't focus, which is kind of general. I think there should be. I think it should probably be a little bit more more specific on the drawback. But it really is destructo disc. If you were to say that like it requires a heightened like amount of concentration, where like the user technically can't really move any other muscle in their body, so they have to stay in place in order to make this work, makes them like more vulnerable to anything that happens around them, then yeah, I think that works. And also the drawback is that it can also backfire against you, a la Frieza. You could actually control it and still move around. But, well, actually, not scratch that. They repeat the size, so maybe not. I was thinking of Static Shock.
Superhero Static Shock. Woo-hoo.
I mean, you could probably maybe just sit on the small size pizza and just hope for the best, right? But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it on that one. Like, I'm curious about the other drawbacks about that one, but that's just kind of like part of like how we do things here. A lot of Quirk Concepts have kind of a mixed bag of things as far as the effectiveness of like that quirk, or the elaboration of the quirk, or if there is a drawback or not. Obviously, when we review these ones, it's definitely cool to see people's ideas as far as like what they do, the potential drawbacks of them, some techniques that kind of elaborate on exactly what you had in mind. We're always open for those ones, but having said that though, I think there's a pretty decent lineup of Quirk Concepts this time. I think it's at this point like maybe we should try inputting like one of our own again. Clean Poop version 2. Here we go.
Jesus.
All right, guys, listen up.
Gracious.
You with Clean Poop, you don't even need to flush.
How?
Well, it's Clean Poop. Like, what do you want?
Why would you put it in the toilet?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe you don't even need it. Clean Poop version 3. You don't even need the toilet. You just go.
It just evaporates into thin air immediately upon exit.
In fact, I encourage it because it cleans anything it touches.
What in the fuck?
All right, that's enough like elaboration on my weird quirk. I'll save it for like Quirk Concepts 7. How about that?
I can't wait to hear the elaboration on this.
Oh my god. So my god. So that's it, everybody. So hopefully y'all give support for this video as far as submitting like your comments down below, giving us ideas on to what to cover for the next one, and hopefully we'll be back again for Quirk Concept 7. But of course, it does rely on the community like feedback on that one. So for now, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching, and hopefully we see you guys in the next one. Yeah, take care, everybody. #bye, everyone.